Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here. This is going to be a very exciting panel. We're going to talk about export. I'm Julie Pottier, as you know by now. And export is the only thing we talk about at EDC. Every day, all day. So I'm very pleased to be part of this discussion. We will try to make this interactive. I've got some great panelists with me. You'll hear from them in a few minutes. David Pereira, COO of Animikii. David, thank you for joining us. Yes, please. Lora Rigutto from FITT. Thank you for being with us, Lora. Nice to see you. And Patrice Mousseau, CEO of Satya Organic. Thank you for being with us as well. So absolutely, great round of applause for everybody. So I'm very pleased to be with our panelists today. We're going to be talking about export. We've got three goals this afternoon. One is we will demystify export. We've got a tall job in front of us, demystify export. What does it mean to export if you're an entrepreneur or if you're helping entrepreneurs? Let's talk about that a little bit. We will talk about the challenges, the opportunities as well that Indigenous businesses are facing. And thirdly, we will try to absolutely talk about what are the strategies, what are the services available, what does the ecosystem look like when it comes to finding your way overall. So we'll try to do these three things. We want this session to be interactive, so we will leave time for questions. So please don't be shy. We will ask you if you have any questions for us. So maybe we could start with why export and what is export, and maybe I can start there. So first of all, maybe some myths that are out there. Export is not only for companies that actually are shipping physical goods outside of the country. It includes services, it includes knowledge industry, it includes technology, all of the above. It's everything. The other thing is that it's not limited to large companies. It includes small, very small companies, very large companies, medium companies as well. One thing I hear a lot is often companies will say to me, you know what, Julie, I'm not really an exporter. I'm only selling to companies in the US. People are exporting, and they're just not noticing that they are exporting. So, it is certainly something that we need to take advantage of. I will start with giving maybe a few facts that are important. So there was a recent study done by on Indigenous businesses. It was done in 2023, and it provides a lot of interesting data. And I think when we say export, let's do this, this data will connect to what I'm talking about. So when we look at business SMEs overall, there's only 7.2% of Indigenous businesses that export, compared to 12% when we look at all Canadian SMEs. So there's a great opportunity there for having more Indigenous businesses start exporting. The other thing is that 39% of Indigenous SMEs are owned by women. Where we compare that to all Canadian SMEs, it's compared to about 15%. What we also notice is key markets, US, for Indigenous SMEs, pretty much the same for all SMEs, but also for Indigenous SMEs, New Zealand and Australia are a market of interest as well. And I think the last fact that I'll state is that Indigenous businesses, when they're a SME, they're usually larger than other Canadian businesses. And that's actually a great advantage. It's an advantage because you have more capabilities to take on more export and just diversifying your market. And the last thing is Canada only represents 2% of the global market. So there's 98% of a global market to get out there. So the more we can give the tools to companies to export, the better it is for those companies to just bring in prosperity, to grow, and to also bring economic development as well to their businesses and communities as well. So with that, I will start with our panelists to introduce themselves. David, do you want to start?
Talofa and kia ora, everybody. My name is David Pereira, and I'm the CEO here at Animikii. Born and raised in New Zealand, of Samoan heritage. Interestingly enough, people always say, "Oh, my accent's pretty interesting." I would say your Canadian accent's pretty interesting. I would say this morning with the chair over here speaking as, I was just like, "That's a really interesting accent." I was waiting for you to do some roundhouses. I thought it was Jean-Claude Van Damme up here gonna, So you all have very interesting accents. For the introduction here, reflecting on what to introduce, I think really to position myself in terms of relationship with you all, give you a bit of history on myself and the company. And also, I think importantly, some of the history about Samoa and New Zealand. A lot of people don't know that the islands of Samoa were colonized by Germany, and then after the war, the English sent New Zealand over to take ownership. They had it for about 30, 40 years. In 1962, took half, and US took the other half. We gained independence, and that's why you find a large presence of Pacific people in New Zealand, such as myself, first generation born there. To this day, we are still colonized by American Samoa, by America and the US, which is still a territory where citizenship, and the only path to citizenship is to join the military, much like other US territories like Guam. So just wanted to position myself there in terms of an Indigenous person living on the land of the Māori people of Aotearoa, and I'm very thankful and appreciative of that upbringing and that experience. Soon after university, I left for Asia for 10.5 years, where I did a lot of things around business and a lot of, my mum would probably say, trying to escape growing up. But I grew a good formative time there, and then moved to Canada in 2016. And then after 4.5 year stint at Shopify, started working for Animikii. And very glad to be here and to meet you all. Animikii itself is an Indigenous technology company founded on the 7 sacred teachings. And our CEO, Jeff, who couldn't be here, who a lot of you probably already know. And it's a space where we provide digital and data solutions for Indigenous communities and Indigenous-focused organizations, which interestingly enough becomes a lot of work with non-Indigenous organizations, as we see a lot of supports and departments, provincial as well as federal, that are looking to work with community. I'm here to speak more about our experience and us as a company, but also our experience into export into the US, which we've really sort of stepped on the gas in the last 2 years. Yeah. Thank you.
Lora?
Okay, hello everyone. Hello everyone, Lora Rigutto, and I am the Partnerships and Community Lead at FITT. FITT is the Forum for International Trade Training, based in Ottawa, but we're all spread out across the country. What FITT is, we are the global leader in international trade training and the certification of international trade professionals. So we have the endorsement of the Trade Commissioner Service, the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service, as well as a strong mandate by Export Development Canada to train their trade advisors. So many trade commissioners that probably are in your networks and trade advisors at EDC are also either certified international trade professionals or have taken our training. And our training is EDC and FITT training, EDC backed. And what our training is it'll enable individuals to learn the complexities of international trade. Everything from assessing whether your company, it's feasible to start exporting, all the way through to that trade finance piece, international sales and marketing, global market entry strategies, et cetera. So it's just, we look at international trade through that human resource lens, and just preparing individuals to succeed in international markets. So happy to share more information as the session goes on.
That was weird.
Okay, I suppose we're still
It was
good
an
to go.
Amber Alert.
It's an Amber Alert.
Yeah, it came up an Amber Alert.
Okay.
Okay.
Patrice, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Patrice Mousseau. I grew up in Treaty 3 in Sioux Lookout, and I'm a member of the Fort William First Nation. My parents are Leo and Ellen. My grandparents are Romeo and Monica, and my great-grandmother is Antoinette. I am the founder CEO of Satya Organics. It's a company that I started actually from my little girl in my kitchen crock pot. Formerly, I was a broadcaster, TV shows, radio. I was the news anchor for APTN for some time. Thought I was going to do that forever. And I ended up becoming an entrepreneur because entrepreneurship is not, does not have to be just one thing. I think we can make it whatever we want, and the same goes for exporting as well. It's really up to you what you want to do. So I'm really excited to have that conversation here today and encourage more of you to be exporting. I'm currently in 3 countries. We just also launched, thank you. We also just launched in all of the Shoppers Drug Marts across Canada, and we are the first Indigenous brand on their shelves. So hopefully, absolutely not the last. But yeah, that was another 1,100 new stores, and then we're launching in all the metros. And so we're actually kind of figuring out our strategy as to where we want to go and what we want to do. But it can really be based on what you want to do, right? Not what somebody else wants, what you want to do. So hopefully we can help you figure that out today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on this contract. So maybe, Lora, let's set the stage. Patrice just said what you want to do. So how should companies or those that are advising companies, what's the homework to be done?
Yeah, the homework, everything starts in preparation. I mean, exporting, of course, as Julie laid out, can lead to prosperity, and that's why we're here. Can open up, if you learn to diversify, open up new markets, it can lead to more success. However, you need to be prepared. And if exporting were easy, every company would be exporting. It all comes down to basically assessing whether you have what it takes to deliver your product or deliver your service across international borders. Do you have that human resources capacity on staff? Do you have the financing? Are you willing to put in the time? Because when a customer is perhaps across the world, it does take time. It takes longer time to develop relationships. So it's all about that preparation, having a plan, being strategic, and really being focused. And the whole world is not your market. You have to be focused on where you have the most potential and then hone in on that one individual market and plan for success in that market. And as Patrice said, they do have success exporting, but being strategic about where they're going to go next.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Is that how you did it, Patrice?
No. Sorry. So this is how I started exporting. I was doing a trade show, and someone from the consulate came by and said, hey, this is really cool what you're doing here. And I was like, yeah, go ahead and take one. She took one. Took it to the consulate in Hong Kong, showed it to a bunch of distributors. They all wanted it. And then she called me back and said, guess what? And I went, oh, okay. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Luckily, because, like I said, everybody did want it, I was able to pick and choose who I wanted to be in partnership with based on my values. The clincher for me, my choice, was actually one company said to me, do you want to go in stores in China? And I said no, because I knew that they do animal testing. You have to do animal testing to be in stores, at least at the time. And they said, we figured you'd say that, that's absolutely fine with us. I was like, they get it. So I ended up in partnership with them. I relied heavily on the Trade Commission, which is fabulous. If you are interested in doing exporting, finding out the information that you need to just get started, like where should you be researching, where are the resources. The Trade Commission is amazing, and it's free. It's also kind of subjective. Like, my trade commissioner has been with me since the get-go, and she is absolutely fantastic. I would say if you don't have the best experience, try another one, because this is a huge resource for you that's available, and have as many conversations as possible with other people. You know, for me, it was kind of make a decision. Do we need to saturate Canada first before we move on to our next market? Or do we think like exporting is going to be our market? Maybe Canada isn't our market, right? Maybe it's Ghana. Maybe that's the one place that you end up exporting to. So it was very seat of my pants kind of thing happening. Depending on what you want to do. Do you want to have a one-on-one relationship with a distributor or a broker? Then you can be small, right? You can just build that relationship, which we have. We're really good at relationships and building community, right? That's one of our superpowers. And you can do that in an export situation and just kind of build from there. You don't have to be giant. You don't have to go, international. It's like, no, these are just people you're in relationship with. They just happen to live in another country.
David, what about you? Did you follow any of the pattern that Lora was describing, or was it also different for you?
It was a little bit different, but it was good to come back to some of the things that Lora said as we developed. Much like Patrice, it sort of seemed accidental, but I think really making that transition to someone who's actually looking to import and put more resources and effort into it, so being more intentional was key for us. I think as Indigenous people and those that I've met here in Canada, we're really good at building relationship, and Patrice mentioned the word relationship, and I think that's really key in terms of exporting. Building relationships helped us build confidence. So we too relied on or build relationship with trade commissioners, and there are a lot of good people out there with EDC as well, with Todd Evans here, built a really good, strong relationship with him. Todd, are you here? Could you stand up for us?
Yeah, everybody needs to know Todd.
Yeah.
Todd, are you here?
Todd, where are you? There he is. He doesn't want to stand up because
So here's one of your to-dos today, is ask Todd for his detail info so you can get in touch with him.
Yeah, I had to tell him to stand up because I was joking I was going to make him. So, so building those relationships were really key, and understanding what services they provide. And I think it's really key for small companies like Animikii, with 36 people. We don't have a lot of the resources to have someone full-time on export. So I really carry a lot of that through. But when you meet organizations like EDC, the Trade Commissioner Services, Consular Services, and lots of other organizations around, Invest Canada, where you were just up here, I'm like, I've got to talk to you later. But there's a lot around. And I went through an exercise where I actually wrote down who was my export team. And I put myself, half a person who maybe had some time. And then I just wrote down the trade commissioners. I wrote down EDC and Todd. And what it did is it built a lot of confidence to understand what services and programs they had that we could really step on the gas and could go through with confidence, knowing that at the drop of a hat, if the opportunity came up, that we could really capitalize on it. And so I could concentrate on, can we build value? Can we provide value to those that we serve here in Canada with our solutions? And will that translate into another market? So we looked at who our customers were. What's our customer profiles, our client profiles? Do those exist in the US? Yes, they do. Okay, will they get the same value from us? So we started utilizing trade commissioner services. We started going down to the US. And we focused on building relationships first, understanding the people. I think for us as an Indigenous technology company, we also have to be very careful about not becoming the colonizers and expanding as a technology company, because that's what technology companies typically do. They'll go to a place, they'll say, we've got the solution for you. They haven't even engaged with the people, talked with them. And I think that's really key. As Indigenous people and Indigenous businesses, we build that relationship. And that's where we've built a foundation of people wanting to do business to support us as much as we want to support them. But understanding your market, understanding your product, your service, what your value proposition is, what's unique about it, what separates you from others, from your competition. And I think it draws down to a lot of who we are and our values and why we do the things we do.
Thank you for that. Patrice, I'm interested in you sharing with us, how did you incorporate Indigenous values into the brand of your organization?
For me, it wasn't really about branding. We have 1 million certifications on the planet. In fact, we just became a certified B Corp as well, which is, for those of you who don't know, thank you. B Corp is sort of a measurement of sustainability and social justice for corporations, and there are very few of them in the world, and it's very rigorous. So they have this program right now at B Corp, the B Labs. It's called the Level Program, and they're interested in getting more people of color and Indigenous people involved in the B Corp program, and it's basically free. Which is incredible because they give you resources of about $30,000 to $40,000 in order to make this happen. Anyway, if you want to talk to me about it later, I'm around because it's a great opportunity for businesses to do. I think with us, it's a pillar of strength because I never feel like I'm going to compromise my values. Like I said, like with that broker, against not doing animal testing, it's just not a question. I'm not flexible on the things that are important to me, and I think that's just an inherent value. As far as talking about being Indigenous, I think we have a little logo that says Indigenous made, and people know about it when they meet me. But I know that it's very appealing to a lot of people, and I guess that could be an advantage. But again, I think that it's our community building powers and our values that we have, and those are the values I think that people are looking for right now. People are more interested in the sustainability piece that we have built in inherently into our companies. People are more interested in doing business differently, which again, this is how we do it. So that, I think, is in a lot of ways, we are ahead of the curve a lot of times. Yeah,
that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Lora, any misconception about exporting? That when you have new entrepreneurs coming into your training programs, what are some of the things you say, I think that's a misconception as to?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that you're too small to export. So sometimes companies are born to export, and if your market may be too small in Canada, but there may be a market out there for you. So you're not too small to export, but you just need to prepare or name a champion within your organization that can help you navigate some of that. So that's the biggest misconception, that you're too small. Another misconception, I think, Julie, you mentioned, I'm just selling my products across the border in the United States. You're an exporter. And understanding as you scale, for instance, if you actually sell a product across borders and you're doing it just courier service now, you are an exporter. But if you scale up and then you have to think of shipments and all the customs documentation that comes with that and consolidation of shipments, then that's where things get interesting. But if you are exporting across the border, you are an exporter. So those are some of the misconceptions.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting, we are inherently exporters. We used to have trade routes that went up and down Turtle Island. And now the government is like, well, we want to build a manufacturing corridor. It's like, well, we've kind of been doing this for centuries anyway. And it's just like building that relationship. I love, by the way, I feel like I'm going to grow up into that place of like being organized that you're telling. This sounds so much easier, but you know, you don't have the resources all the time, and you just kind of gotta do what you got to do to make things happen. But I think I'm going to be talking to you too, because you know, for example, we were all set. I highly recommend going to like any kind of trade events, you know, when they bring people in from other countries to speak with them and kind of get a feel of who they are, and if you want to potentially do business with them, do trade missions. It doesn't matter if you're ready or not. Just go and meet people, see what they're doing, see what other businesses are doing in other countries. That's a tremendous opportunity. And you know, we were going to be moving into Canada or into China. I was all set to move into China, and my CFO was like, oh, "You gotta stop," because, you know, like Shoppers Drug Mart was 1,100 stores, and we're just moving into all the metros in Ontario, and then we might potentially be going into the Jean Coutu, which is another 700 stores. It's like, how I don't have the capacity. I'm still like a really small team. And you know, what I was saying is you don't have to do it all at once either. This scarcity mindset, if I don't do it now, somebody else will. I mean, maybe, probably not. Not the way that you're doing it. They're not bringing yourself into it. So I think you just need to make a decision about what it is that you want to do, and don't let anybody else tell you different about the way to do it.
Did you want to add, David?
Yeah, I just want to pull on that thread, some of the thread there that you put, Patrice. I think if we, as Indigenous people, go back in history, we were trading. We were exports. We were trading between our sovereign nations for a long time, looking into part of history and seeing that here in Turtle Island, but I can tell you in the Pacifics and all around the world, we had trading routes. We had trade languages. And, you know, as we're looking at, are we exporters? Yes, we are. We always were. We always were. We were always trading. With globalization happening, now we're able to access different parts of the world easier and faster, so we can bring our value, we can bring our trade to those places. And building relationship, I would recommend to everyone, build relationship with Indigenous people in other countries. Shared similarities, same colonial playbook was applied to us all, different iterations and different types, but at the core, based on the same things. So we have a lot more that relates us. In Samoan culture, we have something called the va, or lava, which actually means about the empty space between things. And so we look at, it's not empty space that separates us, it's empty space that connects us. And it's connected through relationship, how entities are connected together. When we look at the Pacific Ocean, that space is not ocean, it's ocean that connects us, and it's our highways. So also when you're looking at exporting, build those relationships. Go into that, might be empty space. It's there for you to connect with other Indigenous people. Together, we're the most powerful trading nation in the world. Together, we're the most powerful nation and economy in the world. So let's go meet your brothers and sisters. They're waiting as well in that space. So these trade missions and things provide some of that space. $50,000 a year you can get from Can Export funding to go on some of these trade missions, to spend on market research and go meet them. And a lot of people I've met here are actually already doing that.
And there's some free ones too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So many programs, good programs to be out there, but.
Yeah, I think the Asia Pacific Foundation is doing a trade mission right now to Taiwan. That's, I think, fully covered.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just go.
The Can Export program is very popular as well in terms of, so that's one that you can apply for.
Yeah.
Do you have the experience with it?
Yeah, we use Can Export now for 2 years, and I'm applying for a third year. And one of our key initiatives was to go to the Reservation Economic Summit down in Las Vegas, largest economic summit in North America. I think last year was 3,800 attendees. It must have been over 4,000, and it was just amazing. You know, going as part of a Canadian Indigenous business trade mission, you know, sounded pretty fancy. When I got across the border, I had no trouble because I just said I was going. And but it was a really great experience to see other Indigenous folks, to see the Native American communities, what they're working on, the similarities, and just the opportunity there.
And you know what, I can't remember the exact number right now, but it's over $100 billion a year is generated by Indigenous-owned casino, resorts, hotels. So this is a marketplace for people, right? Selling to our cousins down the south in these beautiful resorts and their gift shops and their hotel rooms and, everywhere else. In fact, I just signed a licensing agreement with another company. We're going to be doing hotel amenities, formulated by Satya, but they're going to be handling all of the logistics of that, the manufacturing, the legal, the documentation, all that kind of work, and we get a percentage, and then we're in relationship with these casinos and hotels as well. So maybe it's a licensing agreement that you're entering into. That's a possibility as well.
Absolutely. Wondering, any lessons learned that things that you've learned along the way that you would say, if I had to do it again, maybe I wouldn't do this again? Patrice? Do you want to start, David?
Sure. Lots of lessons learned.
Yeah.
Really assessing, do you have the time and resources? It's one of those things you get out the more you put in. We didn't have the resources, and so I just ended up spending a lot more time on it myself, and realizing that there are opportunities there, but it's really key to make sure you have the time to really devote towards it. And then really understanding what's your stage of business, where you at, your human resources, who do you have that can support this, and your product as well, and your customers. Do you understand who your customers are? What's the value proposition you're bringing through, and what are you bringing through to there as well? So that was really key in terms of a lot of learning there.
Okay. What about you, Patrice?
I would say definitely talk to as many people as possible, ask as many questions as possible. Be aware of your own energy and keeping some for yourself. It's so easy as entrepreneurs to just go and go and go, and so we see an opportunity, it's like, oh, I should do that too, or I should do that. Just decide what it is that you really want to do versus, all the things you could say yes to. Say yes to the things that make sense to you. Also, here in Canada, maybe Canada isn't your market. Maybe it is like another country, and that's a huge opportunity there to expand. And just listen to your values, listen to your elders, your aunties and things, and get some good advice. And if something feels wrong, it is wrong. Guaranteed. And if anybody wants to chat, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm going to hang out afterwards too. I know we're going to do questions if anybody has any questions as well.
I could probably add another learning on there. Among all the challenges and the learnings that we had, I learned that we should have exported earlier. We should have done it sooner.
Okay.
Because we focus a lot on supporting Indigenous communities, people-focused organizations, 10 times the population. Economy's larger in the US. So that opportunity and people learning more about and building relationship earlier, I wish we would have done it years ago. Right now we're working on projects, Blackfoot Nation in Montana, $8.5 million USDA-funded project, doing environmental data science up in the Arctic North with the Indigenous people up there, and a project with the universities of Virginia and Notre Dame, and the list just keeps growing now. So I wish we had have done it sooner. I can definitely see one of the things that I learned was in the US, their place in terms of truth and reconciliation is not where Canada is. And I realized that they look a lot to Canadians and to Indigenous folks in Canada. And they were always talking to me about, wow, you guys have this. They're not even admitting that they had residential schools. They're so far behind in the US. And then I realized that they really need you all. Mm-hmm. They really need to know you all.
One of the things that the U.S. is ahead of us, though, is protecting cultural identity. There are structures and frameworks that they have in the U.S. for that we do not have in Canada. So if there's any politicians in here, please try and take a look at that. We need to get that addressed, big time. I forget my other point. I just was like, oh my God, identity. So yeah. There's lots of good stuff.
Yeah, if you think about it, let me know. I would add to the list, and maybe that's going to look like I'm kind of giving you, from my standpoint, what's super important. So one thing we do at EDC is provide financial services, and having receivable insured is a good thing. It's a really good thing, especially as you're growing your markets. That will prevent that if should something bad happen, you won't take a loss on your company. So that's something we do a lot with companies of all sizes across all sectors. The other thing I would say, we have a program related to guarantees, and that's for the working capital. There will be a time, as Patrice was saying, you are getting a lot of sales. You need the working capital to get things moving. And it's important that you talk to people in your network, the ecosystem, about what's available. This is what we do pretty much for a lot of companies, and we see these products being used an awful lot, whether things are good or whether things are bad. So it's really, I call it the glue of export. These are things that you need to think about as well. So I would like to know, anybody in the audience that would have questions for our panelists? I'm interested we would love to get your questions. We can't see really clearly here. Hopefully there are questions.
Thank you, Julie. I can see, and we do have a runner back over here. We just need to see your hand to make sure that we can see right up over here.
Jennifer Cook has a question.
Yeah,
Jennifer is
right
our
here.
inclusive trade lead at EDC.
And we're going to mic you up first if you don't mind. We've got people online that are joining us. You enjoying the panel, guys? I am. Let's give it up so far. They're doing great. Take it away.
Thank you to the panelists. A very interesting discussion. My question is around navigating the ecosystem. We've heard a lot about lots of different resources, lots of different tools that are available. How can we make it easier for Indigenous entrepreneurs to navigate that, to find the resources that you need when you need them? Any thoughts from your experience on that connections piece?
I think it's people. I think it's humanizing the experience. I get so many emails all day, every day. Please don't send me another document that I have to read to figure out where the resources are. I think if you can have the opportunity to sit down and have a face-to-face conversation, or Zoom even, and talk about where they're wanting to go and what kind of supports that you have available, I think that's a real benefit that you could potentially do.
Yeah, I can echo the same. People, there are so many resources out there. For myself, when I was looking at exporting for Animikii, and there are just a ton of resources. There are different organizations that are supporting, and it's like, where do you start? And actually, which ones are the best, limited time, which ones are the best that I should concentrate on? But it's the people, and then, for myself with EDC and the trade commissioners, it was really important for me and the company as an Indigenous technology company. Mind you, we go into spaces where if we lead that we're an Indigenous technology company versus saying we're just a technology company, we get looked at differently. So we always say we're an Indigenous technology company first, especially in those spaces. And with organizations like EDC and Todd and his supports and the trade commissioners, what put my mind at ease in terms of finding a safe place, a partner that would help us grow, is understanding what they get measured for on success. So I knew that some of the things that they get measured on for success is if my business does grow, if we do export and we do well, if we can expand and if we have access to capital, if we have these things. So I knew no matter what they're measured as being a success in their role as each individual person and the services they provide meant that those were the same things that we're looking for in success. So then we were aligned. So the people is the thing. Like, I bothered Todd, have a call, and then we end up talking for 2.5 hours. Sorry, Todd. Trade commissioners, but they connect us. It's the people.
Yeah. Lora, anything you would add?
If I can just add, I hear this all the time working with different entrepreneur groups and incubators, accelerators. There's a lot out there. There are a lot of programs. There's a sea of programs. It's just, I still go back to being strategic, naming a champion within your organization. And I know that, financially, companies are, you have to be aware of your finances, you have to be aware of your human resource capabilities, but you need to nominate a champion that's going to oversee this international expansion. You need to clone a David, you need to clone a Patrice, but you need to have somebody that looks and assesses all of these programs. That Can Export program is a fabulous program. There are many other programs, but what I find sometimes is that entrepreneurs are chasing different programs and then they lose sight of, they lose their focus in, the market that they're trying to break into. They need to almost step it back a bit, create that export plan. Sorry. But winging it is not always, for the long run, winging it is not always the best approach. And having somebody that can navigate all this support that, yes, there's a ton of support out there, and FITT can support you as well with that knowledge piece, absolutely, but you need to learn to navigate all of these complexities and all of this support that's out there. So it comes down to having that one person, that champion, that can oversee all of this.
And if I can also say to those financial officers here that are going to be doing the helping, please simplify everything, every single process, every piece of documentation. And David, you could probably back me up here. It is harder to get $5,000 than it is to get $100,000. It's really wonky, but it's just putting so much work on these entrepreneurs. Please simplify your process. And as entrepreneurs, use these resources. We are First Nations people. Generally speaking, we don't come from generational wealth. We are stepping out of our communities, sometimes for the first time in your community, building your own businesses, thinking about exporting. And we don't have the systematic resources that other people, white people, colonial people do, right? So take advantage of these resources. Don't feel like you have to do it alone, because doing it alone is a #1 way to fail.
Yeah, I agree, Patrice. A lot of times, say for myself, I'm trying to figure out how to keep my team employed. They got families, they got people that are supporting them. So being able to simplify the exporting process, the way to do these things is really key. We just don't have the time to go through these, and very much to yourself, like yourself, Patrice, we get tons of emails from different places, going through applications, getting funding needed to do those types of things. And I like to pull on the relationship part too. Like, it was really fascinating for me to speak to a few of you last night in the IFI network, talking about your clients, the passion that you have, hearing about their businesses, and how so many of them are looking to export are exporting. And very much like my relationship with Todd and with trade commissioners, I see that you all have a relationship there that are helping businesses export, that are doing that. And I would support you all from learning more about exporting. I'm sure a lot of you do already, but exposing your clients to that market and the opportunity is huge. For Animikii, it's pretty easy for myself. We focus on the Indigenous people around the world, so our place is global. Ours is 400 million plus around the world. And so we look at how we build those connections and how we get there. And for yourselves there in the IFI network, wow, so much opportunity, so much innovation, so much amazing people that you work with. Really inspired. And the opportunity that can be built there, and the sustainability in the future in reaching these other export markets.
It can be so pivotal. Like Donna from Tallahout Aboriginal Capital in Vancouver, she literally sat me down and we went through the application together. I don't know where I'd be without her, honestly, because I hate paperwork. I hate doing that kind of stuff. And she literally had my back, and it made a world of difference. So I hope if you can extend that and not just give them a piece of paper, and just be in relationship with people, because it's going to make a big difference to them for sure.
That's great advice. I'm wondering, one thing I've heard before for companies going into export, one of the recommendation was have an advisory, set yourself up with an advisory panel to get counsel Is that something that you've tried out? Is that something that others that may have done it, other Indigenous businesses that may have had a similar journey, is that something that you've considered?
I think we sort of unintentionally did that.
Okay.
I think, like Patrice said, like, you're not coming from generational wealth, not coming from a lot. Like, I found myself as COO being quite isolated. Like, who do I talk to for support? Who can mentor me? Where can I learn from?
Okay.
And usually it was other COOs of large companies who don't have my background, that don't understand Indigenous life. So you end up trying to find others, or you end up trying to do it on yourself. So with export, it became reaching out to other companies that were doing it. It was building that advisory council from people like Todd at EDC, from the trade commissioners, and I know quite a few of them there, and I know that which offices are in which parts of the US, so I can tap on them. And I use them as my advisory council, those that provide these services.
That's great. I think we have sorry, we couldn't see you. You have a question at the back.
Yeah, and I don't know, now it's working. So my name is Sharon Redsky, and I'm a First Nation member of Shoal Lake 40. And my question is related to Canada-US, and if you have experience and if there have been benefits to the J Treaty for export?
I was literally having this conversation over lunch. You know, for me, like my First Nation they don't issue blood quantum letters anymore, because that's what they require for the J Treaty, like that you're 50% or whatever, but they won't give. Anyway, it's still very up in the air. I'm actually going to go and talk to the border guards and see what they have to say. But I think it's a benefit, like even if you're not going to be living or working in there, it's an opportunity to be able to bring your business to like trade shows and things like that. So that's a good thing. But you're still going to be paying tax and that sort of. So it's an opportunity for sure if it fits your company.
For us with the J Treaty, have we experienced any benefits or anything? No, nothing. It hasn't been something that we've seen as possible to utilize for us. You know, we're a digital services and product company, and it seems to be a pretty gray area that I've tried to navigate in terms of who recognizes the treaty. Canadian government, US government, they have different interpretations of that. And it seems a very gray area in terms of that. So for ourselves as a business, we can't, as Patrice was saying, we have limited time, limited resources. We can't put resources into an area where it's unclear on how that is. And that's from talking to trade commissioners. I think there was an Indigenous First Nations person that we talked to over at the Canada Border Services as well. And they also mentioned, a lot of these gray areas. But I would love to see it change. Like I could imagine Indigenous community whose traditional territory spans both sides, and being able to trade in between those two sides and areas, tax-free zones between them and for Indigenous communities, and being able to bring goods over, goods and services over, that makes sense. This imaginary borderline, well, it's pretty real now, but this medicine line was placed through these territories of these people. They should be able to trade with their family over there.
So I'm wondering, just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody in the room. Were there any other questions in the room?
I don't see any, Julie. Oh, there's one right up in the front. Right up in the front over there, right in the middle.
So we really want to make this interactive, so don't hesitate if
Now you're doing a good job.
question.
Oh, thanks. How did you know when you were ready to scale?
I didn't know. I mean, sometimes, a lot of ways, it's felt like holding on to the bridle of a wild horse. You don't know what's going to happen. You have a different company sometimes, every month, every week, things change. I don't know if it's like there's any indicators of ready. It's just sort of the opportunity and your capacity. Right? And then, yeah, and just talk to your friends, talk to your people, your community, and get some support and sort of sound out the details of your business and where, and reach out to people on LinkedIn and get advice and, yeah.
Yeah, similar to Patrice, it was, I have a different mindset. I think growth for me is inevitable. I think we all should be looking to grow, whether it's personally, professionally, or within your business. But very key is, as Patrice had mentioned earlier, like understanding how much energy you have to put towards it. And I think that's really key as being drivers in your organization. Like, how do you keep your well-being and keep your health good and be sustainable? And then on some of the planning side, being able to assess, look at the opportunity. It's good to acknowledge the risks. Like, there are risks there in terms of exporting, but lean on the opportunity that will drive you. Look at what the growth opportunity is. Look at examples of if your market just explodes. What if you build those relationships and land those opportunities? What that will provide for you, your organization, your people.
I can add too, if you just search, the Trade Commissioner Service has a tool. It's called the Export Readiness Assessment. It's a little quiz. I think it's 15, 16 questions. And it's hard questions that you really, truly should answer honestly. And it'll help you determine whether you are ready to export. So that's one tool that I've used myself. There are other tools out there, but that's a good one.
And if I may add, everything is scale, scale, scale. It doesn't have to be. Mm-hmm. You don't have to scale. Like, I was talking to the amazing Sunshine Tenasco, and she coined a phrase, bush rich. Some of us just want to be bush rich, right? You want to have your stuff, and that's good, and that's all you want. You don't have to just, the $100 million company, VC, billions of, you don't have to do that. What if you're making $5 million a year? That's still considered a really small company. 10 million, 20 million? Would you be happy with that? Ask yourself these questions. What do you really want? And what do you really need to make that happen? Right? So maybe you don't have to scale.
Yeah, I can also add in terms of export, there can be a long time frame for it, or a longer time frame. Doesn't mean selling products today. It's about maybe building some initial relationships and learning more. It might be using CAN export funding up to $50,000 a year to go on a trade mission. So you're not actually doing any of the producing. You're going to build those relationships. We did that for 2 years before things really started working, before we had the resources to really push in further. I wish we had started that 2 years of relationship building probably 10 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So you can look at exporting, you can start those first steps. And that takes time, and you can really start to understand when you are more ready. And I would say a lot that I find, I'd say less so these days, but in terms of Indigenous businesses, just doing businesses and entrepreneurship, a lot of it comes down to just knowing we got this. We're here today because we're resilient and because we're strong, and against all odds, we're still here, and we'll be here tomorrow for the next generations. So when we do things, we might not know how to do it at the time, but bloody hell, we're going to figure it out, and we're going to thrive, and we're going to build the next place better for our kids and for us.
Sure, for sure. Lora, did you want to add something?
Well, I wanted to, you mentioned, David, you mentioned about trade shows. Trade shows, that's your primary research. So if you're thinking of exporting, do a trade show. Talk to people. That is primary research. And often, depending on your industry, everybody's under one roof. So you have potentially customers. You have potentially distributors, agents. You have everybody under the same roof. So you can talk to multiple people. That is primary research. There is no better or cheaper way, because if you had to then pay a consultant to find that same information that you could gather by going to a trade show wherever, phenomenal opportunity to research, to learn, not just about the market where the trade show is, but often if it's an international show, many people from various markets might be there. So I can't say enough about trade shows. And the funding, often you can get CanExport funding or other funding to take part in a trade show or a trade mission, which often has a trade show component. So.
The only thing I would add is that we know through the research we've done that, if a company has gone to the US to go to another market, it can take up to 3 years to enter a new market. So pace yourselves. You don't have to do it all at once. Some companies will be global from the get-go, but it does take time as well. So it doesn't mean that you need to be in a rush to access many markets at once. David, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, and please reach out. I'm more than happy to support or just give you my experience and what I've learned. Patrice has a really rich and large experience, different from my own as well. And CanExport funding, the applications close at the end of the month. So you can put in a project, $50,000 will get covered. You can start to look at what that is. Key dates for us is we go every year now to the Reservation Economic Summit. Next one is in 2025 in March. We're going. Let us know if you want to go. There'll be a trade mission going. You'll be able to be organized to go with a group. We had a booth the first year we built relationships. Second year we got a booth. Next year we got a larger booth, and we're taking more team. And there's a lot of people there to meet and connect with. Another key one is World Indigenous Business Forum at the end of October in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I know from the New Zealand delegate alone, there's 40 people going. So there's a lot of people to connect and things there. So if you're looking to do some travel, you can use it actually for market research for consultants as well, looking to IP protection, as well as a lot of other things, SEO and other marketing materials, booth setup and things like that. Booth you can set up for a trade show, and then use that booth material to go to another trade show that you can use here at home as well.
For sure, for sure. Wondering if we're sitting here again 5 years from now, what would you tell us about your export journey overall? What you're hoping we would talk about 5 years from now?
Well, I hope I'm not sitting here in 5 years. Should be a younger, better version of me here somewhere, someone else. Hopefully it's the future generation sitting here. I think in 5 years, if the story I hope to tell, or someone else up here, even if I'm at the company, I'm hoping it's one of our new team members who is a new executive, someone born and raised from the land here, up here talking about it, would be saying that, yes, we've found that export has worked well for us, that we've built relationship, that we talk about the impact we create from the products and services we sell and provide to other Indigenous people in other markets, that we talk about how we've done well in the US, how we use that in terms of 2 tracks of expansion that we're working on. One of them is the Americas track, so we're looking to expand down into the US, build relationship there. We know there's a lot of chambers of commerce organizations that are formed from Central and South America within the US. We build relationships there. We have a place to build relationship to go into Central and South America. At the same time, I'm working on an APAC track, so Asia and Pacific region, the largest population of Indigenous people in the world. Myself being from New Zealand and from the Pacific Islands, forming relationship and building our work that we're going to do there, our products, our services. And so hopefully in 5 years, we're here and we're talking about our premises, our business and our offices that we've set up. We're setting up in the US at the moment. We're purposely incorporating within the US so that the people from the land there can own that business.
Great.
And that's how we feel that we will like to export around other places of the world. Very important for us to have presence in those places, have ownership for the people from the land, employ people from that land. So I hope that in 5 years, the better, younger version of me is up here talking to you, not just about our export journey, but the good that we're doing and the impact that we're creating for people in those places.
Yeah, sounds very exciting. What about you, Patrice? What would we talk about 5 years from now?
Well, I will have had the capacity to pull the trigger on the plans for China. That's next year. I want to look at Ghana, actually, in West Africa. I think that that's going to be a really great opportunity for people. And in addition, we have a manufacturing innovation that I want to see spread internationally as well. That's going to put a lot of power back into the hands of small and medium-sized businesses and leave them less vulnerable to venture capital and allow them to innovate faster and create a lot less waste as well. So that is something else that's coming down the pipe. It's kind of secret, but yeah.
Well, it sounds great. So I don't know about you, but I think we had an incredible chat, and hopefully you got a lot out of it. What I would say is, yes, be absolutely motivated, convinced in what you do, and it will happen. Number two, do some prep. Think about export. It's a team sport, so get your advisory people around you. We talked about, there's a number of them, TCS, us, EDC, other Indigenous entrepreneurs. So there's a lot out there that in terms of whether it's services, and just let's do this, because there's a whole world that we can conquer. So thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists. Weren't they great?
Thank you.